everyone, welcome to the Mufasa book readings. My name is Julia, and today's reading will be reading from the book by Mel Robbins. The book is titled The 5-Second Rule. Enjoy.
Chapter 5, Everyday Courage. I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. Quote by Rosa Parks. Before I discovered the hashtag 5-second rule, if you had asked me to give you examples of courage, I would have given you a list of history makers. I would never have said that courage is what it takes some days to get out of bed, speak to your boss, pick up the phone, or step on a scale. I would have told you that courage is a word used to describe acts of huge bravery. Courageous people, in my view, were the Nobel Prize winners Malala Yousafzai, Lima Jubawi, the Dalai Lama, Aung San Suu Kyi, Nelson Mandela, and Elie Wiesel. I would have thought about Winston Churchill and Britain standing up to fight against Nazi Germany, Rosa Parks standing up for a right to keep her seat on the bus, and Muhammad Ali steadfast in his religious beliefs and refusing to fight in Vietnam. I would have been reminded of Helen Keller, who triumphed over her own disabilities to advance the rights of others, of Sir Ernest Shackleton, who overcame shocking odds to rescue the crew of the Endurance, or of Galileo, who challenged the Orthodox Church to advance science. But after using the rule for 7 years and hearing from so many people around the world, I have learned a very important certainty. Everyday life is full of moments that are scary, uncertain, and difficult. Facing these moments and unlocking the opportunity, magic, and joy in your life requires tremendous courage. Courage is precisely what the hashtag 5-second rule gives you. The rule gave Jose the courage to believe in his value and ask for a raise. Once he asked for one and got it, there was a prize waiting in his next paycheck, a bigger one. The rule gave Bryce the courage to put 2 years into writing and published a cookbook. And he didn't stop there. He got Barnes and Noble to host a book signing. As Bryce puts it, quote, "You can achieve anything that you are passionate about and are willing to work for," unquote. What's even cooler, Bryce was only 15 at the time. The rule helped Martin push through 9 years of one excuse after another and, quote, slamming on the brakes hard. And when it came time to pursue his master's degree, after living with debilitating depression and anxiety, Martin dug up his old course books and started researching online for suitable degree programs. He knew he had a mountain to climb, but Martin was finally taking his first steps up. Juanita learned to listen to her inner wisdom. Instead of thinking about a job search and a company a friend recommended, she picked up the phone and called right now, and guess what she got? Exactly what she pushed herself to go and get, a dream job. Learning about the 5-second rule was a turning point for Gabe. After realizing that I was responsible for everything that happened in my life, Gabe used the rule to change his life by starting his own virtual reality company. Today, he's creating the career of his dreams. Kristen's life has been forever changed because her boyfriend now has a way to battle his drug addiction. Whenever he feels a desire to go, quote, back to one of those drugs, unquote, he uses the hashtag 5-second rule to fight his addiction and retrain his mind. He counts backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to himself to trigger new behavior, and his mindset completely changes and he goes about his day. Courage is in fact what I needed to get out of bed. It was very scary to get out of bed because it meant facing my problems. It was difficult to look at myself in the mirror and accept the fact that I was 41 years old and my life and career were in pretty lousy shape. It was overwhelming to consider I might not be able to fix the situation my husband and I were in. Courage is what my daughter needs to put down the pen in a high school history class and raise a hand. It's what your team needs to escalate its concerns to you and what your kids need to tell you what's really going on. Putting your online profile up on a dating site or blocking your ex on your phone can feel like an act of bravery. So can adopting a new technology for your business or walking in the door of your home and facing your problems head on instead of pouring a drink and zoning out in front of the TV. As I began to write this book and started collecting stories of people around the world using the rule, it became clear that inside every decision there exists 5 seconds of courage that can change everything in our lives. The more the word courage came up, the more I began to wonder if there was something about one of the most historic moments of courage that would help me better understand the nature of courage itself. The first person that came to mind was Rosa Parks. You probably know the story of how Rosa Parks sparked the modern American civil rights movement on a chilly December evening in 1955 when she quietly refused to give up her seat on a bus for a white passenger. Her moment of courage teaches us all that it's not the big moves that change everything. It's the smallest ones in your everyday life that do. She didn't plan to do what she did that night. Mrs. Parks described herself as the kind of person who tried to be, quote, be as careful as possible to stay out of trouble, end quote. The only thing she planned on doing that evening was to get home after a long day at work and have dinner with her husband. It was just an evening like any other evening until one decision changed everything. Curious, I dug in and researched everything I could find about Mrs. Parks, from the National Archives, biographies, radio interviews, and newspaper articles. What I found is incredible. Just weeks after her arrest, she gave a radio interview to Sidney Rogers on Pacifica Radio, and the National Archives website has a recording of it. Here's how she described that historic moment in her own words, quote, as the bus proceeded out of town on the third stop, the white passengers had filled the front of the bus. When I got on the bus, the rear was filled with colored passengers, and they were beginning to stand. The seat I occupied was the first of the seats where the Negro passengers take as they on this route. The driver noted that the front of the bus was filled with white passengers and there would be 2 or 3 men standing. He looked back and demanded the seats that we were occupying. The other passengers very reluctantly gave up their seats, but I refused to do so. The driver said that if I refused to leave the seat, he would have to call the police. And I told him, just call the police. Then the radio interviewer asked her the million-dollar question. What in the world ever made you decide to be the person who, after all these years of Jim Crow and segregation, what made you at that particular moment decide you were going to keep that seat? She replied very simply, I felt that I was not being treated right and that I had a right to retain the seat that I had taken as a passenger on that bus. He pressed her again, noting that she had been mistreated for years and wanted to know what made her decide in that moment. And in the interview, she paused for a second and then said, the time had just come that I had been pushed as far as I stand to be pushed, I suppose. He asked if she planned it, and she said, no. He asked her if it just sort of happened. She agreed that it just sort of happened. This is a critical detail. Rosa Parks didn't hesitate or think it through. It happened so fast. She just listened to her instincts telling her I was not being treated right, and she pushed herself to follow them. Since she didn't hesitate, there was no time to talk herself out of it. Coincidentally, 4 days later, in that same city of Montgomery, Alabama, on December the 5th, 1955, there was another 5-second decision that changed history. The Montgomery Improvement Association was formed in response to Mrs. Parks' arrest, and a 26-year-old black preacher was voted by his peers to lead the 381-day bus boycott that ensued. On being nominated to lead the boycott that night, the young preacher would later write, it happened so quickly, I didn't have time to think it through. It is probable that if I had, I would have declined the nomination. Thank goodness he didn't think it through. He would become one of the greatest civil rights leaders of all time. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching our video. Don't forget to like, comment, share to your family and friends, as well as subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much. Bye.